Good evening and welcome to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and it's time to talk basketball, especially with it being March. Here to look at the UNT basketball programs with me is Isaiah Ortiz and Jose Moreno. Guys, we're going to take a look at the men's team first. They played East Carolina, got the win 84-69. Jose, what did you think the Mean Green did well in that game?
Honestly, the Mean Green did really great on offense. I mean, they scored 84 points, the most points they've scored all season. They almost had a 50-40-90 as well, with 50% shooting, 46 on three, and an 86.7 free throw. But they went 13 and 15. If it wasn't for the numbers they shot, they would have probably had a 90% if they kept going the whole rest of the night. I mean, shout out to Stone Cold Reuben Jones. The guy went out there and he dropped an easy 18 on the Pirates on 60% shooting, 66% of that being from three. And that's an incredible stat line to see, especially for a Mean Green player, because Mean Green historically haven't been the best at the three ball. He was also a menace on the court, but a big shout out to Jason Voorhees Edwards, because he, while struggling on three, still managed to round up 18 points right in the paint. Overall, a really fun game to watch. I've been kind of accustomed to really bad UNT, defensive basketball, not much great offense. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air this whole past season to see this team wake up offensively and kind of show their stripes that way. And
Isaiah, the first time these two teams faced off came down to a buzzer beater, and then this game UNT was able to win by 15. So what did that win mean for the Mean Green?
I think they really established their dominance, especially at home. You want to protect your home court. I really do appreciate the three-point shooting in this game from John Buggs, Reuben Jones, like you mentioned, and Jason Edwards. Had 12 threes combined, which was double the amount that ECU had that entire game. And I want to shout out the bigs for battling down low. Their big man, Ezra Asar, who's averaging 11 and 5 this season. Foul trouble in the game, shot poorly from the free throw line, no made field goals in the entire game. Just great work overall by the Mean Green.
Right, and moving on to the next game, UNT last night faced off against FAU, who went to the Final Four last year, and they lost 80-76. So, Jose, what did you think the Mean Green did well in that game despite the loss?
I think keeping pace with an FAU team that's currently one of the nation's best offenses. They've scored 100 points, multiple times this season. They've also been able to beat teams like Arizona. For a team like us that never is expected to beat kind of a juggernaut of the conference like FAU, I think this game was a miracle. To see UFC still have a fighting chance way late into the game, it was great to watch. I mean, the only big accomplishment that we had here today, though, was Jason Voorhees' performance. I mean, he put all of Denton County on his back. Yes, all of the county of Denton. And he carved up the FAU defense with 32, get this, 52% true shooting. I mean, incredible game by him. I don't think I've ever seen a UNT player score more than 25 points, let alone more than 30. And it's just a big accomplishment for us to play so well and have a star player like that go out there and ball so hard.
Right, and Isaiah, what did you think the Mean Green did well in the game?
I really like the offensive rebounding opportunities for the Mean Green in this game. I want to shout out Robert Allen. He had 4 huge offensive rebounds down the stretch that led to some of the 32 points that Mr. Edwards had in that game, and really kept us a lot in the game, really stopped Golden from battling for those rebounds and getting those extra important offensive possessions for UNT.
Yeah, I definitely would have to agree with you that defensively, I thought we did a great job handling Vladimir Golden, the 7-footer from Russia. But on the flip side of that, John L. Davis just carved us up. I mean, man had 29 points. Jose, what did you think about the Mean Green defense against him?
John L. could not be stopped. I mean, UNT threw everything and the kitchen sink at him. He still managed to tear us a brand new one with 29 points on 66% shooting. Fun fact about good old Johnny boy here, he actually has been, averaging 28.5 points per game against us. We have no answer for this guy. And speaking of answers, I guess we need a cheat sheet whenever we go play with FAU, because we also don't have any answers for FAU's offense. But that's okay. Arizona didn't either, and a ton of teams didn't have that either, this team. The good thing about this game is we can dance with wolves, but the bad part about this game is we can't kill the wolves.
Right. It's always hard for the Mean Green. It seems hard to get over that hump for the Mean Green. So, Isaiah, I have to ask, in both of the games up against FAU, one came down to a buzzer beater. That one was a heartbreaker because, UNT was almost like, we got this. But then this game, you still cut a close one. So do you think UNT lost because of their struggles, or do you think FAU genuinely was the more talented team?
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of both. Honestly, John L. Davis, right, he was great down the stretch for both of those games, right? But last night's game, I really do think the offense did struggle down the stretch, kind of going into Golden, which they really shouldn't have throughout the game. And I really do think that was the difference maker, which led to a lot of easy shot opportunities on the other side and really extended their lead for FAU late in the game.
Right, and moving on to the women's side, they went up against Rice on Saturday, I believe, and they got the win out of that. What did the Mean Green do well that game?
Well, let me put on my nerd glasses here real quick. The UNT's defense was on another level the entire game. A big shout out to the women out there. They defensively played their hearts out. They shut down, put a lid on Rice's scoring at 54, shut down the 3-ball. Dude, Rice played out there like a bunch of old ladies. They had a measly 31% shooting percentage, going a horrendous 3 from 30. I mean, guys, let's be real. At what point do you ask yourself, 3 from 30, should I keep going for the shots? Who does that, man? If you miss 10, you stop shooting from 3 and you start aiming towards the paint. But speaking about the paint, UNT's defensive domination didn't stop there because the Meanie Greenies defensively out-rebound whatever Rice's mascot is. The Owls? What mascot does Rice have?
I think the Owls.
The Owls. The Owls got out-rebounded by the Meanie Greenies. 27 rebounds to, I didn't even count for Rice's, but they were just on another level against Rice. It was a mollywop of a game. Awful, awful day for Rice. A great game for us, though.
Right. Isaiah, what were your thoughts on the Mean Green's performance that game?
Yeah, I really do think they dominated, especially Desiree Cornell with 22 and 10 on 8 of 11 from the field. She played 37 minutes and had that efficient of a game. I think that is just spectacular. I want to also shout out Desiree Wooten. There was some foul trouble from the guards in the starting lineup, but she stepped up when needed and played some vital minutes for the Mean Green and got eventually the win.
Right, and then the next game on Tuesday, they faced off against Memphis to clinch conference tournament, regular season conference champions for the first time in, I believe, 40 years. Yeah. Jose, can you just speak on the mentality of this team?
It's so funny you couldn't say champions because I don't think any UNT basketball team has been able to say it?
Champions.
Champions. And I understand why. I mean, efficiency was our best friend throughout this entire game. Memphis was not efficient at all. We were 55% shooting on 26 and 47 total, which I think was incredible to see because we only had 2 more shots than Memphis, yet scored and 10 more points than them. They were also awful, Memphis. It was just not good to watch them go out there and play. 24 for 63, 38% shooting. Not the type of basketball you should be playing, as a program as illustrious as Memphis. And also keeping the scoring inside the paint. UNT was just paint protecting, paint dunking. You might as well call them up to paint your house because they could probably do that too. They had 40 total points up in there. Insane. UNT just breezed by Memphis like nothing.
Yeah, and Isaiah, when it comes to the Mean Green and coming into this American Athletic Tournament, how do you think they'll do in the tournament?
I think they can do well if they do one thing, and that's provide help inside for Cornell. This is not a three-point shooting team whatsoever. They don't take a lot of threes. But eventually in the tournaments, the best players are going to get extra attention. And that's when you need to call upon your shooters and other scorers and ask for their help because that's going to be vital in the stretch if they want to win the tournament and end up making March Madness.
No, I agree, Isaiah. That's actually been a big thing on what I was talking about was our 3-ball is just really disappointing on the UNT women's team. I mean, it's fun to play in the paint. It's fun to shoot mid-range. But let's be honest, how many mid-range paint teams we see winning championships? None. The game has evolved past that, and I do agree. Once you get in the tournament, you get tired, your bigs get tired, they can't continue. You're going to need some short people out there to be able to shoot the 3. Then take it from me, dude.
And Isaiah, very quickly, what do you think it'll take for the Mean Green to win the tournament?
Like I mentioned, the role players got to step up. It can't come from 1 or 2 people like we see with Cornell and we see from Tamisha Lumpkin. It has to come from the others to win the tournament.
And Jose, your thoughts?
For us, I mean, honestly, it is just kind of not playing down to teams as well. I mean, that is a problem that UNT has. We did play down to Rice a bit in that game, but overall, I think keep a cool head, keep it calm. I know it's our first ever appearance as a women's team, but hey, we can do this together. Just stay calm and collected, guys.
Right, and We'll just have to see how March goes with our women's basketball team. But when we come back, we'll go on the field and take a look at the Texas Rangers as they're in their spring training.
What's wrong? Are you stuck in your paper?
Pretty much. I haven't written anything in like an hour.
Why don't you check out the Writing Center at UNT?
Well, how do I meet up with them?
All you have to do to make an appointment is visit the Writing Center's website and either call the number or email writingcenter@unt.edu. The appointment is 30 minutes long, and the trained tutors will be able to help with brainstorming, correcting grammar, ensuring clarity, and a wide range of services. They also do walk-in appointments.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna check them out.
So, when's this paper due?
30 minutes?
For more information, visit the UNT Writing Center's website.
Yeah, it's 6 pages.
Hey Alex, this guy on the internet says he wants to give me money.
That sounds suspicious.
What do you mean?
Typically, strangers who promise you money on the internet have their own best interest in mind. They often use bounced checks, which will disappear shortly after depositing, but not before they've asked for some money in return.
So he doesn't really want to spoil me.
No.
Well, then what should I do?
The best way to handle it is to block and report the suspicious message, or even consult local law enforcement if you've already fallen victim.
So I guess we aren't going to Key West for spring break.
No.
Good evening and welcome back to Sportszone. Baseball is back and we're here to take a look at the Rangers as they get into their spring training. And here to talk about the Rangers with me is Anthony Council and Jacob Calhoun. Guys, we're going to take a look at the game on Monday against the Angels. Rangers unfortunately lost 3-2. Jacob, what did you think about that performance?
Honestly, I thought that it's probably been our strongest performance yet this in spring training. Pitching really stepped up, and I think that the pitching should be the highlight of that game. I mean, Simeon, yes, had a home run. That was incredible, but I think that our pitching really stepped up that game, and, I think that this bullpen might actually save us this year.
Right. And Anthony, what were your thoughts on the performance on Monday?
Yeah, I think it was great. I think, like you said, the pitching was there, but I gotta say, the camaraderie that this team has, and from watching a lot of the clips from the MLB network from the Rangers, it seems like they're really trying to ride this train of winning the World Series, and I think you're seeing that a lot. They had a tie against the Colorado Rockies just the other day, 6-6, which was good, but you got to be able to, with these spring games, you have to be able to try and not go out there and destroy, but just get a little bit, underneath your feet, because you're coming back off of a World Series win. That was phenomenal. But what are you going to do to take that next step? Because everyone's going to be coming back stronger.
And speaking of that next step, Anthony, who did you think played well in that game?
I think it was, I gotta say Seager. I think he played a really good game there, but I think it was the rookie. I can't remember his name. Carter, yes. Yeah. Carter has been playing phenomenal, and I think that Carter, he's getting comfortable. This is his first full rookie season.
Right.
So that's really huge for him. And I think Coach Bochy's trusting him a lot more throughout this year, especially after being in a World Series, this being his full rookie year. I think he's been playing a very good spring season.
Right. And then Jacob, who stood out to you on the game on Monday?
Honestly, pitching staff. I preached it at the beginning. I think that the pitching staff has really stepped up, and I look forward to seeing this entire team and this pitching staff when we finally get going.
And then on Tuesday, the Rangers were up against the Mariners, and bats were hot. It was a score of 10-9. Rangers take the win. Jacob, what were the big moments of that game? Because there were so many runs.
Man, honestly, Evan Carter. We can't get enough of this kid. Yeah, he's obviously the leadoff home run to start the game, incredible. And then also the grand slam. What was that, the second or third inning?
Yeah.
Right.
Incredible. I think that this kid's going to be an absolute stud.
And then Anthony, to you, what was the big moment?
Yeah, I mean, Evan Carter, he's that guy. He's been the main, person for this team. I think, you know, we know the Rangers have a couple injuries right now, right? Like they have a couple, and I think that when they come back, I think Evan Carter's still going to have a big role. It's just not allowing him to try to take a step back when they come back, you know, because right now, spring, he's showing off. He's you know, a grand slam, a home run. I mean, against the Mariners, that's huge. So I think Evan Carter, he's just playing his ball, and we can't get enough of him, like you said.
Right, and the Rangers, they did have 3 errors in that game. Do y'all think it was just one of those games, like it happens, or do you think the Rangers need to focus on their fielding, Jacob?
I think that it's just one of those games. You know, you're gonna have those games every now and then. Coming from obviously a battle against Los Angeles the night before, I think that it's just gonna happen. You know, every now and then you're gonna make those errors, and obviously they're paid these big bucks, you know, to not make these errors, but it's going to happen no matter what, and as long as they can own up to it, and obviously they can with the offense that they put up.
Right, and then, Anthony, who was your MVP for that game against the Mariners?
Dude, you got to keep saying his name. You got to keep saying his name. It was Evan Carter. I mean, and kind of to go back to what he said, I mean, with those mistakes, I think it's just about, you know, Bochy knows what he's doing. You know, he's won 3 World Series. You know, so he knows what he's doing with his team. But Evan Carter, he's just continuing to raise the level, and he's going to be a superstar in this league.
Right, and then the game on Wednesday ended up in a tie, 6-6, as they took on the Colorado Rockies. Jacob, how in the world do the Rangers tie to the Colorado Rockies, who are not one of the top-tier teams in the MLB right now?
I mean, we obviously didn't send all of the guys out there just because, you know, that it's the Rockies. You know, we want to put some of the guys that need some work in, and I want to say that we started, Adolis was pretty much like the biggest starter that we started. I think we also started Simeon as well that game, but I think that Carter and Langford might have had the day off.
Right.
But Adolis, I'm pretty sure he had his first home run that game, correct? Against the Rockies, which love to see him finally back. You know, can't get enough of that guy. But sometimes it just happens. You know, rough game.
Anthony, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the game, I mean, they didn't score in the first 2 innings. Like the Rockies scored in the second, I believe bottom of the second, and then the Rangers scored, I think, in the 5th, and it was just a lot of back and forth. I mean, the Colorado Rockies struck first, and then the Rangers came back, and it was really a lot of back and forth. And at the end of the day, it was just like, well, I guess we're just gonna have a tie on this spring game. So, but I think it's just some things that just didn't really work out for the Rangers. And you know, it's the Colorado Rockies. I mean, when you face them in the regular season, you're gonna probably have everybody. So it's probably gonna be an easy win for them when they get into season. So.
Right, and Jacob, what struggles did you think the Rangers faced when they were playing the Rockies?
Obviously, our struggles was the offense. I mean, yes, we put up 6 runs, but like you were saying, Anthony, no runs in the first 2 innings. I think that our leadoff guys need to step up and, you know, make sure that we get those runs to support our pitchers. And obviously, our pitching staff didn't have a great day either, giving up 6 runs. But I think that, once again, our bullpen came in and stopped the bleeding.
And speaking of the bullpen, I'm going to give this question to you, Anthony, and then Jacob, you can answer it too. Who in the bullpen are y'all looking to sort of be the anchor for the Rangers this coming season?
Honestly, the young guys. And I mean, I know we've said Carter a lot, but I think all the other young guys there. I mean, because this is their opportunity to really step up. You've had an opportunity in the World Series. You have an opportunity in the minors. You know, this is your opportunity to be like, okay, like we got this. I mean, they're bringing in a lot of different type of players, and I think it's time for the young guns to really step up again, like they did, and just to be like, okay, like this is our squad. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be a lot on the young guys, and yeah, of course Evan Carter, but even the rest of them too.
And Jacob,
to step up, I think that at least in the bullpen wise, I think that Cody Bradford, I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. He might even make that 5th starting rotation spot, just because, you know, we've got so many injuries at the starting rotation. I think that Bradford might take that 5th spot, but as soon as someone comes back, I think that he'll probably get knocked down to long relief, or they might send him back down. I hope they don't send him back down, because that kid looks lights out right now.
Right, and I know we've been talking about Evan Carter a lot, but Anthony, you mentioned some of these younger guys or newer guys. One guy I'm looking at is Wyatt Langford. This kid has been on a tear. Jacob, how excited are you to see him get in and play for the Rangers?
Number 4 overall pick, I think that was an absolute steal. Wyatt Langford batting .300, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs with an 1173 OPS. I mean, absolutely tearing it up. Well, those 3 home runs were all over the weekend.
Right.
2 in one game, 1 the game before. I mean, kid looks incredible. I am so excited about that kid.
And Anthony, your thoughts on Langford?
Like, how do we get Langford? Like, at the 4th pick, like, we get him. Like, I agree everything that you say. I mean, Wyatt Langford, he has been that man. He's going to be a stud, like, this whole entire season. I mean, Owen White, I think he's going to be a stud too, but I think, like, Wyatt Langford, he's going to be that guy for real.
I don't think that we can count out Sebastian Walcott either. I think
Right.
that kid
You're
looks
right.
incredible. Haven't seen him a whole lot this spring yet, but I think that he's still developing. Owen White, I think he will get there eventually, but you know he's had his struggles this in our first couple of times that we've seen him. I do, however, like Leiter so far. 4 innings pitched, 2.25 ERA. You know, not bad. I think that with a little bit more development, he might just pan out for us.
Yeah, I think the Rangers are going to have a great season, but when we come back, we'll take a look at the Mavs, who aren't on the best streak.
Did you know you have access to video equipment like DVDs, video games, and cameras? That's right, you do. Come on down to Chilton Library and fulfill your media dream. Located on the bottom floor next to the student sculpture. Hope to see you there soon.
Hey girl, you know you look good. I like the way you move and groove. I'm not your
What does Talents do?
So I am the Vice President of External Relations for Talents. That means that I basically oversee all the external committees. Our external committees entail our Model A, it's a Mean Green Machine. So they bring it to football games especially, so every game it's kind of there, every home game. The Model A is like a symbol of UNC pride, and it's a big tradition that we are so lucky to uphold and maintain. When people look at it, they see it, and they're like, oh, that's the Mean Green Machine. There must be a game today or something to ramp up school spirit for basketball, softball, volleyball, any of those things. We have amazing teams, so we just want to show school spirit for them. Bonfire Committee, which is in charge of putting together the bonfire every year for homecoming. It's kind of just a whole semester-long process up until Build Week that we have to put together and oversee and make sure safety regulations are followed and risk management is taken care of. Cannon Crew, which oversees and takes care of the cannon. They fire it at games, they take it to special occasions.
Good evening and welcome back to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and it's time to take a look at the Dallas Mavericks, who unfortunately are not on the best streak. We're going to take a look at a couple of games over the weekend and into this week, starting with the big Celtics game. And here to recap those games with me is Kendall Keaton and Austin Fernandez. Guys, as I mentioned, the game against the Celtics, just atrocious. I mean, we lost 138 to 110. But despite that, I do think there were some positives. So, Austin, what did you think the Mavs did well in that game?
You know, the bright spot that they always have is Luka Doncic. He had another 30-plus point triple-double with 37 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. That's a bright spot. And I also like this other bright spot, 60 points in the paint.
Yeah.
I think that's big time for them and something that they haven't really showed. And, you know, they went into the trade deadline getting some big. So, you know, 17 points for P.J. Washington, 19 for Kyrie Irving. I think that was, you know, relatively average. The game was relatively average with a 28-point loss. So, you know, I think those are some of the bright spots they had in that game.
Right. Kendall, what would you say some of the bright spots were?
I agree with him as well. He took the words right out of my mouth. It was a pretty average game, but they did play really well in the paint. They also, of course, Luka Doncic, this was his 40th career 30-point triple-double, third most in the NBA history, and he's only 25 years old, so he's only going to get better, in my opinion.
Right, and I would have to say that I think this game, I mean, the Celtics are just so talented, the Mavs had 4 players in double digits. Over last season and this season, we've talked about how the Mavericks sort of struggle with that inconsistency in scoring. Did y'all feel like this was a good game for the Mavs and the Celtics were just better, Austin?
I really think this was just a big-time struggle, and it's just a real defensive breakdown. You've seen that in the last 3 games that they had. In their last 5 of 6, they've lost their last 5 of 6 after that 7-game win streak. They look like a baseball team right now with this streakiness that they're on. And so, I just think it's a real struggle. And like I said, they tried to acknowledge that struggle in the trade deadline, but it's just really not showing up for them the way that they really expect it to be.
Right, and speaking of struggles, Kendall, what struggles did you see out of the Mavs this game?
Same thing he said, really. It really come down to a defense thing. Jason Kidd did acknowledge it like they said, but he was like, when they don't score on offense, they try to do anything on defense. I believe he said that. But like with the whole trade thing, I feel like Daniel Gafford doesn't get enough minutes as well. He only played like 6 minutes in the game with the Celtics. I believe that he has the potential to be a star on the team if he gets the chance.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you guys. I think the Mavs are struggling defensively, and it's clear. Even Luka Doncic said himself on the defensive end, we have to get something fixed. I understood that Porzingis and Tatum would, rack up some points, but then looking at their bench, I believe they had 2 players coming off the bench that got into those double digits. And so, Austin, overall, did this game go how you thought it would go?
In my opinion, it's kind of exactly how I thought it was go. Maybe not a 28-point loss, but the Celtics are 29-3 at home. They're an absolute home powerhouse. They're just a powerhouse, and they might be the best team in the NBA overall. So it is a loss, is what I was expecting, but a 30-point loss, I'm not sure.
Right. And Kendall, did this game go how you thought it would?
Yes, it did. It's the Celtics. I expected it to happen this way because they have a really good roster. They're a really good team, and just the better team won, in my opinion. And the Celtics, like he said, they're dominant at home, and it was expected out of them.
Right, and moving on to the next games, the Mavs took on the 76ers in a devastating 4-point loss, 120-116. Again, guys, what were the struggles of this game? I feel like it's a broken record, defense, but Austin, what do you think?
I think they keep finding themselves down late in games, down double digits heading into the fourth quarter again. Now they're having to play comeback season, and they just keep getting down in these games, and it's all because of defense, and we can talk about that all day. They don't really have the defensive coaching that they need. They may have the players, and like she was talking about with Daniel Gafford, maybe if he gets more minutes out there, maybe that'll correct some things, but right now, defensively, they're just struggling big time.
Right, and Kendall, what are your thoughts?
Like I stated before, they played the better team that day. They had 17 turnovers, and I feel like that's hurting them as well when it comes to all the games they played so far. They've had 17 turnovers that game, and they didn't defend the box well either. So it was just sloppy game. And the fourth quarter, they let up in the fourth quarter.
Right, and then moving on, the Mavs played the Pacers and lost 137-120. I don't want to necessarily talk about the defense. So, guys, what offensive struggles did they have in that game?
I mean, I think they just need to get more people, more involved. I mean, they had 3 people with 20-plus points. They had P.J. Washington with 20, Kyrie with 23, and Luka had a 39-point triple-double. Again, that was his 3rd straight 30-plus point triple-double. But I just think they need to get a little more involvement. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. definitely needs to get a little more involved. And, I also think that they're still trying to adjust, after the trade deadline, maybe getting some of these extra players that they got a little more involved. But, it's really just hard to look at past their defensive struggles that they really have all the time.
Right, and speaking of their defensive struggles, the Pacers bench outscored them 69-32, nearly tripled the bench's points. Guys, is there anyone on this Mavs bench that y'all expect to step up and score those points?
I would say Maxey. I'm a huge Maxey fan, but him in that game, he had he went 15 minutes and he scored 0 points. He went for threes every time he was out there. He bricked all of them. But Daniel played really well off of the bench as well. He went 7 for 7 on the floor, and he played really great defense with 3 blocks. So I just feel like if more players like Maxey can stand up, be a dominant role on the team, we could win.
Right. And guys, we've talked about their defensive struggles a lot, and it's become evident in the last 6 games. I mean, you lose 5 of your last 6 games. Who do you think will be that defensive spark for the Mavericks, Austin?
I think it needs to be PJ Washington. That was kind of their, in my opinion, the big player that they went out for at the trade deadline. The center for the Washington is where it came from. And I just think that center, that big time, even Derek Lively, he could get a little more involved too, being a big time player that he is when they drafted him. I'd say one of those two. I think that they need to be a little more big is what they mean, because coming into the season I thought they were relatively small, and now they finally got these big players and they're not showing out the way they really expected them to be.
Right. Kendall, who do you think will step up on the defensive end?
Like he said, I believe Derek Lively. He was playing really well in the beginning of the season, but he's kind of letting up a little bit. But I feel like if he gets back into that defensive spark that he had when he first came on the Mavs, we could really get it going on defense.
And then the Mavs will be taking on the Heat. So guys, can the Mavs win against the Heat? Austin?
They can. They're at home, and that could be a positive thing for them. But at the same time, the Heat have won 7 of their last 8 of their last 10. And the Heat culture versus the Mavs culture are 2 completely things on 2 different sides of the spectrum. And Miami always finds themselves the underdog for no reason, even if they're not the underdog. And like I said, the culture is just phenomenal there. So it'll be a struggle. They can win, but I don't expect them to win.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm seeing and common in every game, and Kendall, you've already mentioned it, they need to give Daniel Gafford the ball. He went 7 of 7 against the Pacers, which in case you didn't know is 100%. So, Kendall, can he be the spark in this offense when we go up against the Heat?
For sure. If Jason Kidd puts him out, for sure. But it's up to Jason Kidd to really make those calls, and hopefully he does for this game.
Right. Austin, what do you think?
I absolutely think so. Like you said, he was 100%, and that's something that we could use out there is maybe a scorer and a big-time player like that. And that's why they went out to get him. And if you went out to get him, why not use him? And I think that's the whole issue, is that they're not using him effectively or enough. And I think that's a big issue, and I think it comes down to coaching.
Right, and then what would y'all say is holding the Mavs back in terms of getting these wins, Kendall?
The coaching, Jason Kidd. Also, scoring-wise, off-the-bench play as well. The players coming off the bench are not playing really well. Turnovers are hurting them as well. So.
And very quickly, Austin, what is your score prediction for the Mavericks versus Heat?
I'm going to say Miami wins 117-110.
And Kendall, your score prediction?
I don't really have a prediction, but it will definitely be over 229 points, in my opinion, together, combined.
I'm going to go 121-116. Mavericks get the win. And moving on, we're going to be talking about some Dallas Stars hockey, so stay tuned.
Why should you join Talons?
We are very welcoming to people who may be a little bit hesitant. There's people currently right now in our organization who are in leadership positions who were hesitant before to join, and they found out that they just loved the organization and wanted to be a bigger part of it. They post about the football games, everything they're doing, all their events that they host.
What's the best part about Talons?
I would say meeting new people, because the university, while it's a kind of small campus in terms of like physical land, there's a ton of people here. And so getting to meet all these people who have so much school spirit and love for this university and wants to spread that to other people, it's kind of like a little miniature family that we're in.
I'm so tired. I feel ugly. I'm not okay. I didn't know UNT had counseling services. Maybe I should check it out. This looks like the place.
Welcome back to Sportszone. Just like the Mavericks in the last segment, the Dallas Stars have had a full week of hockey. And here to take a look at the Stars with me is going to be Taggart Kent and Sean Hunley. The first game we're going to be taking a look at is the Stars versus Sharks, their first game, where they won 3-2 in a shootout in the 9th round. Guys, I feel like this result, winning, was an expected result, but going into a shootout with the Sharks was unexpected. So, Sean, why did that happen?
I think it's because the Sharks came out ready to play. I mean, they've got nothing to lose. They're one of the, not to dog on them, they're one of the worst teams this year. You know, it's all right, they're young, but they came out ready to play. And, they caught the Stars off guard. But, luckily Jake held his ground. Jamie Benn had a really pretty sweet goal to win it for the Stars. And, they pulled through, but.
Right. And Taggart, what did you think about the Stars' performance?
Yeah, and he mentioned it too, that the Sharks are young, but the Stars are young too, and they're kind of in a mid-season slump, which happens. And so they're not playing that well. They're 4-6 in their last 10. Prior to that Sharks game, I believe they were 2-8 in their last 10, the one on Saturday. So it was a good game, fun to watch if you're a fan. But if you're a Dallas Stars fan, you want to see them dominate weaker teams like the Sharks, and they just didn't go out and do that.
Yeah, I definitely felt like this game should have been like a 7-2, 7-1 game, and it just wasn't. But the Stars did come out with the win. So, Sean, what was a positive out of the Stars you saw?
A lot of young talent. Logan Stankoven, Wyatt Johnston, Jake Ottinger. If he gets it going in this last half of this regular season, they've got a very good chance to win the Cup. Not to mention you've got Chris Tanev now on the defensive side. So there's a lot of upside. They get a lot of shots on goal. They're averaging almost 40 shots on goal a night. So there's a lot of upside.
Right.
Yeah, and he mentioned it, is that shots on goal number. Both of those games, the Saturday one and the one on Wednesday, you double the Sharks in shot total. So it's not like they aren't getting opportunities. They just aren't capitalizing on them. I mentioned earlier, sometimes it just happens. Sometimes you go into slumps. Sometimes you don't play great. But as long as you're still getting those opportunities, something that bad teams don't really do, like the Sharks only had 26 shots on goal on Wednesday, 20 on Saturday.
Right.
As long as you're getting those opportunities, I think you're in a good spot.
And one thing I want to point out, yes, the goals are what matters, but they won the face-off battle 43-21. That helps, in terms of time of possession. Sean, how important is it for them to dominate facing off?
It's going to be huge. I mean, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, Radek Foxer, they're all in over 50% on the face-off wins. So the more face-offs you win, the better shot it is to get a shot on goal. Like whenever you saw Jason Robertson score that power play goal about 4 or 5 seconds in, beautiful face-off win, straight to Miro, straight to Robertson for the goal. So you win face-offs, you maintain offensive zone pressure, you're gonna get more shot opportunities and hopefully some more goals. But they've just been getting stonewalled.
And he brought it up too, and I brought it up earlier about execution. Specifically on Wednesday, they had a couple opportunities early in the game in a power play and just didn't capitalize on it. And that's just what it comes down to, is getting those opportunities and capitalizing on it.
Right, and then in game one versus the Sharks, they had a couple players stand out to me. I'm going to look at Magnus Cronin, their goalie, 36 saves for 94%. And then Luke Cunnin, he had 2 assists. Sean, who stood out to you in game one versus the Sharks?
Anthony Duclair, power play, big time. He did it on both games. I mean, you saw what he could do in game one, and then he magnified it in game two. But I'd say Luke Cunnin as well, but I mean, Anthony Duclair is the quarterback behind their success against the Stars.
And then Taggart?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the same. I think it's riding the ship, especially for a young team like the Sharks, and getting them to stay focused and understand that, hey, maybe we're not going to come out and win a lot of games, but as long as we're improving every night is a good outlook for them.
Right, and moving on to the second game up against the Sharks, Stars still get the win. They win 7-6 in overtime. One thing I was super impressed about was they doubled the Sharks in shots, 40-20. Sean, what did the Stars do well in this game, in your opinion?
What do they do well? They're rookies. I mean, the rookie, Logan Stankoven. He's got, four or five goals in 6 games played. Right. He quarterbacked that thing. Whenever he scored that goal in the third period, it changed the entire momentum. You could see the Sharks were smiling on their bench, and the minute he scored that goal, things changed. Wyatt Johnston, hat trick.
First of his career, by the way.
First of his career, and not to mention under 21, he's got 5 points. That's a franchise record.
Yeah,
Taggart?
and he brought up Stankoven. Not only does he have a sick name, he brought up the quarterback of that team. Not only is he a great scorer, but his ability to facilitate for others, I think, really gets the Stars going. He's had a couple of, I think it was one assist on one of the goals for Johnston. Getting Johnston into situations to score, obviously you're a young second-year player. You know, it really helps the offense get going. I understand that you're not capitalizing on the opportunities, but still, you're getting them. And I think Stankoven, great name, great playmaker. He's a good, fun player to watch.
Right, and then this was a close game. So, Sean, what would you say the Stars struggled with in this game?
Oh, man, their defense. Their defense was so sloppy. Bad turnovers, some bad plays. You know, and you can blame Jake Ottinger, but, you know, a part of it's defense. And not to mention some offensive players. They're letting them get those odd man rushes and some bad turnovers and some bad goals, frankly. So they've got to fix the defense. You've got Christina for a reason. Get it going.
Yeah, and they brought another UDFA. I believe his name is Connor Plummet this morning. And look, Jake Ottinger, a great player, but understanding, you know, when your defense is still giving up these opportunities, it's still on your defense to not give up those shots on goal. It's up to Jake Ottinger to stop the shots on goal and make sure they're not finding the back of the net. I know 6 goals on Wednesday is miserable, but still, it's up to your defense a little bit to make sure that they're not getting those opportunities, especially close to the goal.
As well.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I was about to say is, you know, I talked about how we doubled the Sharks in shots, but then you look at the score and it's like, oh, well,
brutal.
Ottinger, you know, wasn't able to get those saves. Do you think that, you know, Ottinger had an off game, or would you say that it was the defense and they just weren't in the right position?
Oh, it was definitely the Stars' defense. Their defense and their offense. You know, you would think with the rest they would have some fresher legs, not to mention they're going up against one of the worst teams. They've got a lot of teams that are out of the playoff picture. So I think it was frankly just on the Stars as a whole. I wouldn't blame it just on Jake.
Right.
Yeah, just like he's saying, it's a little bit of both. Jake's still got to step up. I know he's a young player, 100 saves or 100 wins on his career. Excuse me. Not exactly, you know, the most storied player on the team, but still, it's on a little bit of both. Jake can step up, obviously, 6 shots on 14 of those shot attempts, or 6 goals on 14 of those shot attempts, obviously, but still, it's up to the defense to stop.
He wants to catch Turco. He said he wants to catch Turco.
Yeah. And moving on to the next game the Stars will play, they'll be going up against the Anaheim Ducks, who are not the greatest team. They're 7th in the Pacific Division, 23, 36-3 on the year. Sean, just talk about the Ducks for a minute and just how this game will go out, in your opinion.
You've got to watch out for their young guys. You got Trevor Zegers, who's coming back from an injury. You got Leo Carlson, that draft pick. Mason McTavish. Now, they're all on the injury report, but they're all day-to-day. Trevor Zegers is expected to return, I believe, tomorrow when they play the Ducks. So you've got to watch out for those guys. They're fast. You can't have bad turnovers, or else those guys are going to capitalize, and they're going to fly down, and they're going to get shots.
Right. And Taggart?
I think it's funny that, you know, the Stars and the Mavs are both in this situation where they're kind of playing some weaker teams going down the stretch leading into the playoffs. And I think it's a good opportunity for both of those teams, specifically the Stars in this case, to build up some momentum. Beat up on those teams you're supposed to beat up. It's what you're supposed to do. You're a great team. You're a Stanley Cup contender. So go out, gain that momentum. You're struggling recently. Beat up on these bad teams, and you'll be ready for the playoffs.
Especially now with the rest, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of rest.
The rest is going to be super important. And then what do the Stars need to do to win, Taggart?
It's just capitalizing. They're getting the opportunities. It's capitalizing and playing defense. We've harped on it this entire segment. It's easy to say multiple times, but it's just the truth. You're getting the shots on goals, so you have the opportunities. It's just about capitalizing on them. And then at the end of the day, the defense harping up, not getting as many shots on goal, and not giving Jake Ottinger as many opportunities to mess up.
Right. And Sean?
Face-offs. We talked about it earlier. Face-offs. Stay in the offensive zone. Get those juicy rebounds for Logan Stankoven. The kid has scored a lot of his goals off of the rebounds. So stay in the offensive zone, and I bet you're going to get a juicy rebound for Logan Stankoven to get another goal.
Right. And the Stars are sitting first in the Central Division. If they lose this game, what sort of impact do you think it'll have on them?
I wouldn't say too much. I mean, every point's going to be crucial. But right now you got a few points. You're a few points ahead of Winnipeg and Colorado. But a big thing is you need to get those points because it's going to be an airtight race all the way down to the final game.
Right. And Taggart?
Yeah, same thing. It won't affect them that much. It's one game against a bad team, and you're in a slump. But you understand that eventually the ship's going to right. You're a good team, and they know that.
And then who are you expecting to show up for the Stars against the Ducks, Sean?
I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to say Logan Stankoven. I think he's going to keep rolling with goals, and I think Wyatt Johnston's going to go ahead and get some more too. Those kids are killing it right now.
Right. And what about you, Taggart?
I want to mention Wyatt Johnston too. Hat trick, first of his career a couple of days ago. But I want to go Jake Ottinger. I think he's going to have a huge bounce-back game. He's not going to give up 6 goals like he did last night.
Yeah, and we'll just have to see how the Stars do up against the Ducks. Coming back, we're going to take a look at the NFL Combine and get our thoughts on it.
The do's and don'ts of the Pole Rec Center. See that man over there? Please do not hog weights. Instead, do this. Another important part is having an attentive spotter. See, here is an example of a non-attentive spotter. Instead, do this. Now we head to the track, which should be pretty easy, just it's important to pay attention to the way the track goes. Remember to wipe down the equipment after you're done using it. The towels are provided by the gym, so it's pretty easy to wipe down the equipment when you are done. Thank you for using the Pole Recreation Center.
Ugh, a 20-minute walk? I don't want to do this right now.
Don't worry, you can just use Transit.
Transit? What's that?
Transit is a mobile app that provides real-time tracking to connect buses, UNT shuttles, and even A trains. Simply download the app, then tap on the search bar and type where you want to go. In a matter of seconds, you get results for all available routes. And the best part of it is, it's completely free for UNT students.
What are you doing? I'm downloading it right now.
Download Transit today and remember, make life better without a car.
Good evening and welcome back to Sportszone. I'm your host, Mackenzie Freeman, and this past weekend, the NFL Combine happened, so I'm here with John Phillips and Jalen Alexander to get their thoughts on how the NFL Combine went. Guys, overall, what were your thoughts on the NFL Combine, Jalen?
I mean, I really have no bad thoughts about it at all. I mean, it's always good for the players to go out there in Indianapolis and just go out, especially the guys that aren't really necessarily covered by the media coming out of college. I think it's just really good for them. So.
And John?
Yeah, as a fan, I think it's really a fun day to watch, see the drills happen, and learn about recruits that you won't be able to see eventually. You know, you get to learn a lot about players in the draft.
Right, and would y'all say that y'all think the NFL Combine is a good thing or a bad thing? John?
I think it's a bad thing. You know, a lot of former players and NFLPA executives like DeMaurice Smith and Troy Vincent, they say that there are problems with the Combine. They say that the medical process is too intrusive. They say that the interviews have inappropriate questions from GMs and people in the organization. So I think there's a lot of changes that could happen with the Combine to improve it.
I mean, definitely there can be a lot of changes to the Combine, but I feel as if the Combine is a good thing. You have the interviews. You want to know the players you're going to draft.
Right.
You're going to want to know everyone who's going to be on your team this upcoming year, especially with like GMs. Inappropriate questions can be changed sometimes, but you also just want to know the players on your team. I mean, it speaks volumes, especially with the interviews, seeing how players react to things, see how players think.
Yeah, and Jalen, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of that because I think the Combine is good for those that need to improve their draft stock. You know, I think since it's invite only, if you have guaranteed players that are going to make it to the NFL, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, I understand that you may want to see them go up against each other and record their stats. But I feel like if you're going to do if you're going to do an invite some players you're not sure about. Would you agree?
I mean, yeah, for sure. But it's also one of the things to where, like, even if you don't invite the players that you're necessarily part of, you're going to see players go to their own pro days, you know?
Right.
So the pro days, everyone who's declaring for the draft is going to be there. So, and scouts are always going to be at pro days no matter what. So.
Right.
Speaking of pro days, one of the guys I mentioned, DeMaurice Smith, his solution to the Combine's issues are regional pro days that are really big. It's like a Midwest, a Southern one, so you get all the big recruits.
Almost like what they do with college recruiting.
Yeah, so you can get those unheralded guys in the regions, and you can get them the shine that they need instead of the Combine where it's invite only.
That sort of gets me into my next question. Do y'all like that it's always in Indy, or do y'all think it should be somewhere else? I kind of feel like it should be somewhere else because I feel like it's not necessarily the all-stars, but it is college athletes showcasing their talent. So it would be cool if it came to Dallas. They do it in AT&T Stadium. That'd be pretty cool. Jalen, what do you think?
I mean, most definitely. I think Indianapolis is a good spot. I didn't really think of anywhere else. One place I could probably think about it, I could think of it in was probably New Orleans. I think that'd be really cool.
That would be pretty cool. What about you, John?
I think it would be really cool if it moved around like the draft, different city every year. But the traditionalist in me loves that it's going to Indy every year. The guys are always invited to Indy. I love that it's the same thing every year, the constant.
Right, and then my next question would be, who stood out to you guys? I mean, you've got a lot to choose from over the weekend. So, John, who stood out to you?
One of the main ones was Isaac Garendo, a running back out of Louisville. He had the second best combine for a running back ever, according to Relative Athletic Score. He had a top 5 40-yard dash ever, a top 5 vertical leap ever. He had an insane combine, and with him, he's 6'1", 223 with that kind of speed and that kind of athleticism. He is a freak of nature.
And Jalen?
A guy that I had, Braden Fisk, and he was a DT for Florida State University. And really, Florida State was the only fan base that really knew of this guy during the season, which is why the combine is so important to these players. He raised his draft stock, ran a 4.78 40, and just all around stood out in all the field drills. And then a guy that I had who stood out to me in a negative way was Keon Coleman. He ran a 4.62, which was the second slowest in his position group, and it just wasn't a good day for him. I know he had the 38-inch vertical, but which is good for his size. He's 6'3", around 205, which is pretty good, but I feel like it just wasn't the best day for him.
Yeah, and then we got to talk about Xavier Worthy. I mean, he just broke the all-time 40-time record. Jalen, how cool is that for him?
It was so amazing. That is going to get that man paid. And already being solidified out of Indianapolis. I mean, he went to Texas University. Other guys getting the ball like A.D. Mitchell. That's going to solidify him into the first round this year. And he's always looked good running on tape, too. Even if you don't even watch the combine, he's always looked good on tape, even playing at Texas.
Right.
Yeah, this was someone that you saw this speed in game. You knew he was going to run in the 4.2s. You knew that. But 4.21, I mean, faster than John Ross. That is insane. They're historically receivers that run under a 4.25, 4.3 haven't really produced in the NFL, so that's a little scary for him. But I think he is talented enough where he's going to buck that trend.
Right, and I just loved his confidence. I mean, you look at him just running the 40. You couldn't even tell he's running super fast, but then you see the look on his face. It was almost like, yeah, I just did that. Like,
Yeah.
he knew, ran into the crowd, celebrated with them. So, speaking of players that were impressive, who do y'all think increased their draft stock over the weekend? John?
Someone I want to mention, D tackle out of Clemson, Ruke Ororo. He was seen as like a day 3 guy before the combine and then had a free combine. He was top 5 in every single drill he participated in, top 2 in the 10-yard split for his 40, that burst, that vertical he was insane with. He's probably going to be a top 100 guy now, and with 4.89 speed at his size, that's just a freak defensive tackle.
Right, and Jalen?
One guy that I had that I wasn't too crazy about back whenever they won the national championship, but J.J. McCarthy. And I wasn't necessarily like, he could have been a first-round guy, but he had a really good day at the combine. And this hurts as an Ohio State fan to talk about, but he did have himself a day. Another guy I had, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo. He had an amazing Senior Bowl week, and that was whenever I saw him being put on the map. And you usually don't see guys from Toledo going to the league like that. Just he's putting them on the map. And one guy I had that's going to be a steal in the draft, I'm going to tell you this right now, Jalen McMillan from Washington. Sharing receptions from Rome Odunze, getting the ball from Michael Penix. He's going to be insane in the league, and it's going to be a steal for whoever gets him.
Yeah, the player that stood out to me was Ladd McConkey, the wide receiver out of Georgia. I think it's because all the hype has been around Brock Bowers. So you were like, maybe Georgia was good this year because they had Carson Beck and then the best tight end in college football as it stood. But then Ladd McConkey, he came in there and he did great work. So they compared him to Cooper Kupp. So Jalen, very quickly, who are your top 5 draft picks, you think?
Top 5. At number 1, I have Caleb Williams. Fields is getting ready to get shopped. Free agency is about to start, and the Bears are going to get the next best thing since they passed up on Mahomes in 2017. Number 2, Drake May. Excels at throwing down the field. Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin are going to go crazy with that. Number 3, Jaden McDaniels. They don't need Mac Jones anymore. They need a new quarterback, something that doesn't really have the system they used to have with Brady and Mac Jones. Number 4, Marvin Harrison. And this is because he could have went 1, but they're all going to take quarterbacks. So I have him at number 4 going to Arizona. And at number 5, I have Rome Odunze. And he is the second best receiver out of this class.
And then, John, who are your top 5?
number one to my Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest person of all time. He's going number one.
Whoa, whoa,
He's the
that's
best.
wild. After the interviews with the combine.
Who cares? Number two, Drake May, great quarterback.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think any other class, he's probably going number one. Just Caleb Williams is just such a great talent. Number
Yeah.
three, to the Patriots, Jaden Daniels. I have some concerns with Jaden Daniels. I don't like how he handles pressure. I don't like his frame. But the Patriots need a quarterback, and he is the third best in the class.
Right.
Number four, Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, the NFL pedigree in his family, the size, the speed, the production. What does he not have? So you said he could be the number one player in the class? Definitely. This is a very talented
He's
guy.
the number one player in that class. If it wasn't for quarterback needs.
I don't know, Caleb
Right.
Williams.
You know, people always talk about the quarterback class, and yes, this quarterback class is amazing, but I'm excited to see where all these wide receivers are going to go.
It's so crazy.
And
And
then-
speaking of wide receiver, my number 5 pick, I have the Chicago Bears trading up once again, but I have us taking Rome Odunze at number 5 because we need that weapon for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, my top 5 picks, I'm going to go, obviously, Caleb Williams to Chicago. Drake May, he was interesting. I thought he could have gone to the Patriots or the Commanders, but I'm going to stick him at Commanders. Then I'm going to go Jaden Daniels, Patriots, Marvin Harrison Jr., Arizona, and then just like you, I think the Bears will trade up with the Chargers, but they'll end up getting Malik Neighbors. And thank you guys for watching Sportszone here on this Thursday. Be sure to keep those TV on as nightly news starts off here in just a couple of minutes, and we'll see you in 2 weeks after our spring break.